It's been a while since I've reviewed Survivalcraft, but there's some things that I missed. You see, I've watched many gameplays this, but surprisingly not many of them are from recently. Unfortunately, the creator sees this game as not being able to be finished or updated, so in fact, the game, we could say, is officially dead. However, that doesn't mean that there's still things that are valuable to talk about and that it has value despite whether there's updates or not. When I was younger, I would play on some of the older versions of Minecraft purely for the nostalgia. A lot of people, it seems, I think a lot of people would do the same exact thing, and well, evidently so. The same applies here for Survivalcraft. You can appreciate a game for its nostalgia plus its aspects and simplistic gameplay mechanics. Well, I'd say relatively simplistic. Definitely still a learning curve. You're not going to get off scot-free not knowing how to take care of your character in a game called Survivalcraft. You want to play and at least have some semblance if you're not going to do creative mode. I think what's cool about Survivalcraft is it allows you to have the ability to choose whether or not you want to go into the survival direction of the game. For example, Survivalcraft 2, what was specifically interesting about it, and precisely the release, was because extra furniture that anyone could upload and adapt into the game. Sometimes it would be chairs, tables, or other interactive items. However, some of them were not completely useful and were 100% aesthetic. Beyond the simplistic functions, these items don't really do much to change the game. However, if you really do want to create a build and show it off, I can't deny there is benefit in being able to have more variety in what you can use. Speaking of which, if there was an update, and please to God, if the creator decides to add something useful, it would be a search for the creation market. The fact that you're unable to search for an item, texture, world, skin, whatever, is really annoying because how can you know exactly what you're going to get if you can't even search for it? All you have to go by is different ratings people have created, but most of them are 4-star because the good ones get pushed to the top. But the bad part of that is the ones that aren't even on the list, you're less likely to see or check out at all. Now, if we talk about the survival, I think a lot that this game could add is maybe a more precise mechanic for cold. It's similar to the mod on CurseForge for Minecraft called Tough as Nails or Cold Sweat, which allows you to directly see and observe, hey, am I getting too cold, too hot? I think it's really hard sometimes to tell how, and in fact, everything that your character has beyond your health in the info of the player. So it's not exactly highly beneficial not being able to see them directly. I do think adding a bit more food variety would be useful too. All you have really are pumpkins. I can't think of that many things that you can grow. There's a bunch of different meats, but of course they rot. Actually, in fact, all the food rots, which is a good way to make sure that you preserve your food. But if you could put it in a cooler or a frigid area that would slow or even stop the decay of food would be great also. I think the combat is fine. That needs to be changed with it. It's similar to Minecraft's mechanic. You just punch, tap. However, in this, there's spears, and I really like that addition, especially since it has the balls that Minecraft never could do. It was the trident before tridents, and as well, having two different types of guns, really good for hunting and killing animals directly. But the spears are a good pre-addition before the guns to be able to use for ranged, even if it's not very good or you miss half the time, which, ends up happening when you try to kill different birds. I understand that the whole basis is to make it as realistic as possible, but please, if you want to keep making it realistic, you gotta keep it up with the times, if that makes sense. I think for the time we were in awe of how realistic it seemed back in 2011 with the release date of Survivalcraft. However, a lot has changed since then, and I'm not trying to pressure the developer or anything. It's totally up to him. But we can all agree that this had a lot of potential to become a much larger game than what it was. It had a level of replayability that a lot of Minecraft clones couldn't have, and the most important factor to any game is the replayability. Well, that's actually debatable because some games, the replayability is based off of artificial addictive reward. such as gambling. And in fact, a lot of games nowadays follow that mechanic, but anyways, that besides the point. The werewolves, and I talked about this with someone on my Discord server who actually watched my previous video. We talked about how the wolves stick out like a sore thumb in terms of them being the only monster. I think if there was other monsters, maybe from folklore or Native American backgrounds, would be a really excellent addition. Imagine how horrifying some of these entities would be. In fact, I believe the soundtrack was inspired off of different tribes that lived in North America, especially with the themes going on. And I say North America specifically because there's not actually Survivalcraft. I say North America because, one, there's not really any tropical areas with the exception of the beaches. Most of it is highlands, hills, plains, forests, with a variety of maybe some birch forests, but nothing beyond that. I wish there was different landmarkers or areas besides gravestones, which seem to be the only man-made object. Imagine if you could explore temples, abandoned ancient civilizations, or archaeology. It would add a really fascinating blend, I think, to this edition. Maybe there could be villagers the character interacts with, not villagers like, not the ones like in Minecraft. I'm talking about Indian Native Americans. They could be colonials, upright figures that looks like yours, that besides, the werewolf. You could trade certain goods such as cotton, copper, malachite, germanium for trades of axes, machetes, armor, or other types of clothing. Now, I think the building blocks in themselves weren't exactly meant to be totally aesthetic. It's called Survivalcraft, not Createcraft. And besides, if you do want furniture, like I said earlier. But unlike Minecraft, there wasn't magic or other dimensions. It was strictly focused on your ability to survive, especially in cruel mode, where you would have no other option but to make sure your character doesn't die on a brutal difficulty. Sort of like what it would be in an actual situation. It's the type of game that reminds me about National Geographic. A bunch of animals roaming different lands, but if a lot of these animals were in their own habitats besides a plains or a forest, it would give room to expand greatly on the biomes besides just the ones already in the game, which isn't that much. Let's see, some other obvious ones would be multiplayer, besides it being on 4 of the freaking same screen. Pretty annoying, I honestly think. How does someone even play that? Oh, and honestly, the biggest one could seriously need some updates. The caves. They completely lack, and they feel like Minecraft back in 1.2 when the caves were bare boned and had essentially nothing in it except endless wormhole tunnels and lava pits, but very similar layout, I'd say, in the early versions of Minecraft. It was lackluster, and I think people demanded so much for a Minecraft update to be on the caves because no one wanted it that way. Adding some stalactites, be a few other types of ore. Nothing crazy or fantastical like orichalcum, vibranium, but I'm talking about you could have lead ore, bismuth even, expand the usage of iron and copper. They've a ton of potential, especially iron. I think the copper at least has its usage within the understand mechanics of electronics in this game. I was actually interested to realize my observation on a lot of the aspects, particularly in the redstone-like mechanics in this, was completely off from what I had imagined. And quite frankly, that's because I never used them, but I found this comment helpful in explaining to me the difference between actual computers, the ones in this game, and redstone in Minecraft. It's completely different in that sense. I'd say the game aesthetically looks nice. It has a lot going for it, but if there could be the sound of wind or rustling of the leaves or the grass and crickets at nighttime, you could expand so much on that concept. Look at Optifine and the Oculus shaders for Minecraft. These little additions in the aesthetic department can add a lot to the feeling of real hyperization of any game that you play. It's not an important factor, but I believe it's one to be mentioned anyway. Overall, I think the game as it is right now is still definitely replayable. Could I play it every day of the year for 5 years? Probably not, but that doesn't mean that I can go back every few years, visit and do a playthrough, and who knows, even let's play on my YouTube channel one day. It seems a lot of people still think and talk about this game, especially evidently from my last video. There's something specifically about Survivalcraft in itself captivated with people and Minecraft enjoyers alike. Just an idea to create a petition to get the developer to work on this game again. I don't know if that's just me, but maybe that, you know, it's an idea. But for real, even if it's my 10th time playing it, and I know exactly how to kill tigers and bears and trap them, and the spike traps and the grass floor tiles, I can be safe to say I still enjoy the experience very much. The fact that it has a high rating on the App Store and the reviews, they speak for themselves. You can enjoy something purely for the remembrance of it to create new experiences within the old ones. It's a paradox within life in itself, where we can go back and do something that we've done 1,000 times over and keep doing them. Anyways, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I've made other videos and I have a previous video talking about Survivalcraft. So if you haven't seen it, please go check it out. Greatly appreciate it, and have a good one, people. See you all later. And check out my Discord server.